I'm Michele Herndon. I'm creating these videos for both our buyers and sellers, and this one is for buyers, which is why you received it, because you are a prospective buyer for one of the agent partners on our team, or maybe me. But we are sending these videos out because there have been a lot of changes in the real estate industry, and they affect our buyers and sellers, and they affect us as your realtor and agent. So there are four big things that are changing in the real estate industry for all consumers, buyers and sellers. Number one is there will be no compensation for buyer's agents listed any longer in the MLS. So buyer's agent, we used to have a field that said buyer's agent compensation, and it had what the seller was willing to give. That field is gone. Okay. Number two is we have a new listing agreement that details for the sellers their three options of how and if they want to offer compensation to the buyer's agent. Number three is we have a new buyer broker agency agreement that's required by every buyer agent to get their buyers to sign prior to showing. There's three different forms. There's a buyer agency agreement, there's a showing form, and there's some other form that's brand new. But the two that we will be using most likely with you as a buyer is perhaps just a showing agreement because you just want to see one home or two homes and then that's it. Or the buyer agency agreement where you're committing and our agent is committing to you that you're going to work together and you're willing to compensate them. So we're going to dig a little deeper into that in a minute. But the fourth thing is that consumers will be well aware of how their agent will be compensated. And by that we mean if you sign the buyer agency agreement for X amount of money and that you say, I'm going to work with you, I want you to represent me, and the fee I know that you charge is X percentage. And then the agent will, before they show every home, will go to the listing agents and say, where is the compensation listed for this? Is the seller compensating, giving compensation to a buyer's agent? And then they can tell you. I just did this with a buyer last week, and I called every agent and I had listed on my showing sheets what every agent was willing to give, and I said, here's the showings and here's what they're willing to offer. They signed my agreement and they were fine with it because every house that I showed, the seller was offering compensation. Now, had they not been, that would have been a different conversation because we get paid for what we do. It's our job. It's our profession. We are here to deliver the dream of homeownership to every buyer that we work with. However, we're not a charity, and we don't do this as volunteer work. While we love working with buyers and we can't wait to show you homes and to get you into your next home, it is our profession and we do get compensated for it, which is why we have that buyer broker agreement. So the fourth and final thing for all is that consumers, every consumer, buyers and sellers, will now be well aware of how your agent is being compensated. So for you as a buyer, here's the four most important things for you is that number one, you have to sign that agreement that says, I know you expect compensation. And by the way, when we tell you what the compensation is, you can tell us what a seller is willing to offer in compensation. You can tell us, yes, I want to see that home, or no, I don't want to see it. It could be based on that compensation. It could be based on, I just don't want to see that house. But there's a lot going on in our industry. So that's number one. You have to sign that agreement. That is for a buyer. It's non-negotiable. Something has to be in writing before you cross the threshold of any door with any realtor who's part of the MLS locally here. So there's a lot of conjecture going on out in the media that buyers brokers have to work for free now, they don't have to get paid. That's simply an untruth. We're still getting paid. We still have a job to do. We still need to help you. The hardest part of any transaction is not so much getting in the car and going to see the house. It's getting you through the transaction and through the finish line at the closing table. That's where the bulk of what our job is that we do. We negotiate more than one time. We're negotiating for the price. We're negotiating for your inspections. We also sometimes have to negotiate for your appraisal based on what it might come back at. But we do a lot of work. We are staying on top of your lender. There's something like over 100 things that we do, and I won't even get into it now. But real estate buyers agents and buyers representatives, they work hard to get you to that closing table and across the finish line. So the reality is, buyers agents are not working for free. Our team doesn't work for free, and we will be compensated in all likelihood by the seller in one form or another, unless they absolutely refuse. And then we will have a discussion like how are we going to deal with this, and which direction do you want to go in. So the one thing that has changed again is that we can't use the MLS to communicate offers of compensation. It won't be an option. But types of compensation will continue to take multiple forms, including but not limited to a fixed commission paid directly by consumers, concessions from the seller, or portion of the seller's the seller can say, I'm going to pay. It's called the seller to buyer's broker agreement, that the seller says, I'll pay the buyer's agent directly. Or sometimes it still can be the listing broker's going to pay the buyer's broker compensation. So it'll continue to be negotiable and should always be negotiated between agents and consumers that they represent. The second big thing is that buyers will be responsible for paying their buyer agent compensation if the seller is not willing to pay it. We've never run into this before. I don't know how often it might occur, but sometimes some buyers are like, I want this house. If the seller's not going to pay it, I'm happy to pay it because of the work that the buyer's agent did. There are written buyer agreements that are required. They also outline that agents may not receive compensation for brokerage services from any source that exceeds the amount or rate agreed upon in the agreement with the buyer. The third thing is buyers can ask sellers for concessions. We've talked about this before. I think twice I've already mentioned it. To pay your buyer agent compensation on your written offer to purchase. And the fourth thing is buyers can pay the buyer agent compensation themselves. So those are the new changes in our real estate world. These are new policies by the National Association of Realtors, and our MLS has implemented them, like literally. If we don't follow these policies, if we don't have a buyer agency agreement or a showing agreement signed by a buyer every time we show a home, we can be fined, and they are very hefty fines. So we will be having every one of our buyers sign this agreement, and we will dig a little deeper into it, but I wanted you to be aware of the reasons why. So the MLS won't let us advertise that compensation anymore there. There are new agreements, both listing, buyer, broker, and our contracts have new verbiage on them too. And this compensation, this is something that hasn't really changed. Compensation has always been negotiable and remains that way. And we know what our fee is, and we'll talk to you about that, and we'll see where all of that lands. So I want to thank you for watching this video, for being prepared for when you meet your buyer consultation with one of our agent partners on our team, or me, could be me. And we appreciate your grace as we transition into all of these new policies and these new business practices that we have. It's new to all of us. It's new to buyers and sellers. It's new to agents and brokers. And so we appreciate you. We appreciate the opportunity to be able to work with you and help you purchase what is most likely one of the largest expenditures in your lifetime in investments, and we take great pride in being able to do that, and we are super grateful for that. So we're here to help. We're here to answer your questions, and I hope that you enjoy your buyer consultation, because our agents work really hard on those, and you enjoy going out to look at homes. It's one of my favorite things to do with sellers. So have a good day. Call us, email us, text us if you have any questions. Thanks.